Welcome to the fourth episode of the Fleming Chronicles. I am joined today by my guest, Adam Incipiens Conway. I don't even know why I'm bothering introducing him, to be honest. Everyone already knows him. But he is a journalist for both XDA and Irish Tech. He is head admin for Irish Challenger League, former admin for Irish Collegiate Esports, captain for the UCD A team. How are you, Adam?
I'm pretty good. I've been insulted by the UCD A, but otherwise, yeah, pretty good.
I mean, I will just tell people I did pre-warn him that was happening. I don't like to
Yeah,
bring guests on and just start insulting them immediately. I'm sure it's gonna happen at some point, but
he's
not
got a
at the
little book of
moment.
insults just ready for me.
Yeah,
All pointed at UCD
everyone gets it. We barely know each other, so maybe it's a bit
A.
ropier insulting you. You might just never come back to me. We might just stop talking to each other over DMs. But you know, we'll just dive straight into the questions that everyone gets asked, and then we can start getting a little bit more unique later on. But Adam,
Cool.
how did you get into Counter Strike?
Right. Okay. Wow. Who saw that coming? So I remember I actually pre-ordered the game, CS:GO. So I was playing Source on like zombie servers when I was like 11, on a pirated version of Source. But I played a lot of TF2, and there
Oh,
was
right.
like the upper hand genuine skin that you could, if you pre-ordered CS:GO, you got this skin. So I was like, grand, I'm pre-ordering CS:GO. I want this TF2 skin.
Jesus. Okay.
And I had been playing, like everybody else at that age, Minecraft with a bunch of other people, and a bunch of them eventually, I think 2, 3 years after, I kind of played CS when I got it. So I was like, well, I paid for this game, I may as well play
Yeah.
it. And I played a bit of it, kind of like got decent at it, like, because I mean, I'd been playing TF2 for a couple of years at that stage, so it was kind of like I knew how to use a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
And I remember then a few months after it came out, whatever, they introduced ranks and I got up to like LE, and then I stopped playing and went back to Minecraft. And then when I was 14 or 15, a bunch of the Minecraft lads were like, all right, let's play something else now. And they were basically saying, have you heard of Counter Strike? And I was like, oh, I have that on my account. So I started playing it with them. And then I remember for a while we kind of just used to play matchmaking and stuff, and then they stopped playing as much. They didn't enjoy it. Some of them went to Dota, some went and did their own thing. One of them went off to actually found his own like investing company when he was like 17. But I kept with the game, and I was
So
like,
so
right, well, I
you
want,
you were the
huh?
sucker.
Yeah, I was the one left over. So I was like, right, well, I want to start playing with other people. And I remember going on Facebook and I was like looking for CS:GO. It's like pure desperation. And I found the CS:GO Ireland Facebook group, and I remember seeing stuff about like LAN tournaments and online tournaments and everything. It's like, holy shit, this is a thing. So I put up a post and I actually started talking with Figgy. Uh, and Figgy and I went to make a team for G Series 8, and we made a team. He eventually left the team to join Dead Element Gaming, and then I started playing with a bunch of other lads there. And then I was kind of like, damn, I actually really enjoy this. So we got absolutely bodied, but I really enjoyed it. So then I was like, grand, I'm actually going to properly stick with that. Because before that, I was just playing matchmaking, I was just
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
random
yeah.
stuff. I never bothered with anything else, really. So I remember during my leaving cert, I was playing one game a night just on cash. Basically, every single night, one game of cash.
The
And
worst
I'd get
map
up
in
to
my
Supreme.
opinion.
Oh man, no, cash is so good. I got up to Supreme off that, and that's when I was like, right, so I want to actually start playing Face It and doing other stuff.
Yeah. Is that the highest, Emma? You've been global before,
Nope,
surely. Oh, that
nope.
makes me feel a lot better about myself. I'm
I
currently.
stopped playing when I got to Supreme basically and went to Face It.
I mean, yeah. See, I got the Supreme, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is fucking class. And then I started getting involved in the Irish scene a bit more, and everyone's like, oh yeah, but what Faceit level are you? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm Faceit level 3. Shut up and leave me alone.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna blame. I used to play with some guys over in the UK who were crap. Anyway, besides that, so okay, you kind of thank God you managed to skip over my question of how did you get involved in competitive, with people. But yeah, unfortunately, you ended up joining the team with Figgy. Uh,
yeah. No, it was a sad start.
yeah, rather unfortunate. But so you sort of briefly touched on you played obviously one or two tournaments with him and other people. What was your first LAN, and like besides how well you did, what was your overall opinion of how well that LAN went, or from an organizational standpoint?
So I never actually ended up playing a tournament with Figgy. That's when he left. He
Oh
got
yeah, he
annoyed
ditched
over
you
something. I don't
before.
remember what. I absolutely love Figgy to death now. Well, kind of. But we've definitely had our spats like. And I remember so for G series we were kind of put out a bit because he had left the team, and we were like, well, shit, okay, he was like one of our better players. And I remember we got. Do you know Neil Patton? Like Patton? He played
Yes,
way.
I think I
Yeah.
heard his name before. Yeah,
Yeah, we managed to get him to replace Figgy. I remember he was on Riot Gaming back then, which was like way back. And
yeah.
so he joined our team for G Series A. And I remember it was in the Alexander O'Callaghan Hotel. So it was really interesting because it was like. It felt really small because it was so cramped. And it was like you go into the main area in the back where all the computers were. And it was like you were nearly tripping over cables trying to get to your PC. Desk space was small, etc., etc. But it was actually run really well. I didn't expect it to be run so well because this was my first foray into any kind of like organized Counter Strike kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I was there going, huh, there is a Defier. The games are actually going ahead, which GamerCon couldn't pull off a few years later. So I
Yeah,
was impressed.
oh, don't even. I get PTSD from that as well. Like,
Yeah, no. So like overall, yeah, I was very impressed with it. I remember my main memory from that LAN is we got into the playoffs, but we got into quarters, and we were playing against nobodies. And I remember, so it was like Cinder, Wendansky, Archangel, Neeks, and oh, who was I can't remember who the other one was, but we got absolutely destroyed. And I remember on
yep.
the last round, they just started singing for the whole round.
What
They were just singing
absolute
really loud.
wankers, yeah.
Oh no, it was actually really funny because they came up to us after, they were shaking our hands and was like, "Well played." So I was chatting with Cinder for a little bit, like, and he was saying like, "You aren't terrible." So it was nice to talk to them, but my God, we were just there like, "Yep, we've been had."
Yeah, yeah, obviously, I think everyone's ran into them at some point, whether you've been in a
Yeah,
playoffs or in a group stage. It's just, it's demoralizing. You like,
yeah.
I just wanted to throw my mouse away every time we've played against them. I think there was actually one instance where we were playing against them, but they had scheduled another match for directly after ours, and we were like, if we play like Navi, run every round down to the last second, they'll have to forfeit. Unfortunately, one of our players, Long, who now plays for Ulster Unicorns, went to sleep, didn't set his alarm, was like, why would I set an alarm? I'll be grand. Then didn't wake up, so we were playing 5v4, and our master
Oh
plan didn't come to
no.
fruition. Stuart from NSG was in the Twitch chat just absolutely slating us because they were representing them at the time. Uh,
Yeah.
but you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. But so that's your first LAN. How many bloody years have you been playing like in it in different Irish lands to sort of give us an idea of, you know, your insight into how things should be and how bad they can get?
So I've been playing since like in Irish land since 2016-ish. I think it's 2016 G Series 8. That would have been my first. And then I've played every LAN bar 1. I think oh no, bar 2, sorry, bar GamerCon as well.
Yeah.
And it was funny because one of the ones that I missed, I got a sinus infection that was pretty bad, and my doctor was like fairly certain it's a sinus infection, but like, oh, we got to keep an eye on you just in case it's something else.
Yeah.
And this somehow got misconstrued as half the Irish scene believing I had a brain tumor. Uh, I
That's a
don't
new
really
one.
know how that happened because I remember I got a message about 6 months later off somebody, and they were like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm grand." They're like, and they were like beating around the bush for a bit, and I was there like, "This is something this person wants to ask me," and they were like, "Did you not have a brain tumor?" And I was like, "The fuck did you just ask me?"
Mate, I
Uh,
had a sore nose, like not a fucking brain tumor.
Yeah, no, because you see, the thing was like there was like things of saying like, yeah, no, I will need to be kept back in case there is an emergency. But it
Yeah.
was said to my team, it was like it's likely nothing. Like I've just been told I can't travel too far, um, and yeah, it got misconstrued as that. So that was my fun little story as to why I didn't attend one of the lands. But otherwise, yeah, I was at like various different one tap lands. I was gonna go to GamerCon, and then I pulled out in the last 2 weeks because my German oral exam was during the or it was like the day after that weekend finished. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I need to use this weekend to study. So sorry, I can't attend. They were
You
like, yeah, cool. And
dodged
I
and
dodged
yeah.
a bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was big that I dodged that. So then there was, yeah, just all the various one tap lands. I went with mixed teams, bar the one time I went with the UCD team where we had Ruben, Ekip, me, Evan,
Yeah.
and Drags. We came third. We
Yeah.
which was mental. I remember. So what ended up happening was, we had got through, and what was it? It was really late. The last bus to go back was at like 8 o'clock or something that night, or 9 o'clock, and we had just finished at 7. So it was basically thinking pack up and fuck off. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I wanted to make my bus, because we had thought anyway that we weren't going to win our game. We had thought we weren't getting to the Sunday, so none of us had planned for that. The others were able to be flexible. I wasn't really, because I didn't have a way home on the Sunday. Um, and so I remember having to make a call. Like, I called my mom and I was like, "Don't think I can come home." She was like, "Okay, but do you have like a place to stay?" I was just like, "Hmm."
Yeah.
And so I ended up then. I had to, oh no, it was the last train to get home after the bus. Sorry, that's what the issue was. Because
Oh,
the bus
right.
goes to Dublin, and then from Dublin you get the train back. And I remember I couldn't make that, and we were going to play our next game against the Ventex team, Ventek and Wan. And I was there thinking, oh, like I didn't expect to get this far. We didn't think we were going to win, but I was like, fuck it, sure, I'll stay for the crack. Like, if we lose, we lose. I'll work something out. I had a guy
Yeah.
who I ended up going back with that night. I stayed with him, and then was able to go home the next day, so it was grand. But I stayed, and we actually won the game. And I was
So
like,
thank God. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it was, I think honest to God, it was actually 2-0, but they were both like 16-14. I remember Dakodia found it so funny. He made like this little video um, after it, and it was just like pictures of all their faceit levels and then pictures of all our
Oh,
faceit levels, and then like comparing them to dogs and stuff, and it was playing a Radiohead song over it. It was brilliant. Like, it was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
yeah.
Uh,
It's like whenever they do all the how it feels to be Cloud9 and sort of those
yeah,
meme
exactly. Yeah.
videos. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like, I guess, the peak of my LAN career, especially because like it was a thing that we were all playing as one cohesive unit. Because UCD, even in Ice, has been known for kind of teamwork and stuff. So it was like this coming to fruition. Yeah, we'll get onto that, but before it was known for teamwork, and it was like this all culminating and coming to fruition. I was like, wow, we actually played really well as basically a mixed team, because we couldn't play with Turtle and we had to get Ekip from Trinity, so he wasn't fully aware of all our strats and stuff. But yeah, it worked out
Easy
pretty
enough
well.
to swap and change them in then.
Especially a player as good as him, yeah.
Yeah. No, you had to get a little bit of a compliment out there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Before you
exactly.
start like making everyone else hate you.
I,
Um.
I swear I'm friendly.
Yeah. No. Adam, known as the biggest snake in the scene, definitely 100% no sarcasm behind that.
Oh yeah, that's me.
Um, yeah, so obviously, we've done your lands now. It's sort of, we're going through the checklist of Adam's
Yeah,
professional player career. Even though I'm gonna hope
you've
in the
used that word
future.
very liberally.
Yeah, I mean professional in terms of being an Irish player. Even the people
Yeah,
who are signed up to orgs in Ireland aren't professional players.
yeah,
They're basically, hey, would you like to be paid in exposure? Almost. Uh,
yeah,
But yeah, so in your career, which I hope after your career's done, you'll be most known for your contribution behind the scenes and how you've helped. In my opinion, from the limited knowledge I have, you've sort of at least helped establish sort of like a baseline of good decision making. Maybe, I don't know. Other people might disagree with that, but so how do you think? So obviously you've done all your lands, but you mentioned there the UCD team. How
yeah,
well? So in past seasons, you have done pretty well, from what I've heard.
yeah.
I came in about the tail end of last season. Didn't really watch the final, but one of my mates was telling me how well he did. This season though, Adam, not really going too well for you. How would you sum it up so far? Obviously, you can go as deep as you want. I'm not going to
Yeah.
force you to say anything you don't want to. Please, anyone who may get offended by the following segment, do not come at me for it. But how do you think
I
you've done?
like how you've had to give that warning for this and not anything else because you know that things may not be as they seem from the
Oh,
outside.
because
So,
anyone who might get offended by this is definitely getting offended by what I have to say later on.
oh
So,
yeah,
I'm splitting things up. This is Adam's time to get heat.
brilliant. Okay, so in past seasons, UCD has been a team that before we had when we had the lineup of with Drags on the team, we used to practice a lot. We used to play together a lot. The season before they changed the import ban or the import rule, we were practicing for like probably 6 months straight.
So
We were
wait,
like,
so
we're gonna
this,
win this season.
yeah.
What?
So this is you drags, and then the rest of the roster is just for anyone
Oh yes,
watching.
sorry. It was Turtle. Uh, who was it? It was Turtle, Danny, and Aiden, I
Oh,
think.
and then you and drags, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that was the team then. And then what ended up happening was we practiced for 6 months. Um Actually no, sorry, it wasn't Aiden, it was Ruben. We took Ruben back on the team at this point. So yeah, we practiced for 6 months and we had entered ESEA, we had done everything. We were actually pretty happy. We didn't make playoffs in ESEA, but we were like, we had thrown 3 games. It was like a thing of the classic UCD throw. So we knew where we were going wrong, and it was better than no practice. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
a huge. We weren't like sad in the sense that like, oh, this team should fucking disband. We're all terrible. But it was the thing of like, well, we know where we went wrong. We know what we did. This is good practice because we know we can try fix these so we don't do them against TUD. And then 2 weeks before the tournament was supposed to start, ICE introduced the import rule ban, which screwed over Drag, screwed over us, screwed over our game stock, which paid for us to enter ESEA. None of this was communicated to us, and we had to scramble and get a new fifth. So this is when we got Aiden on board. Because Aiden before had expressed an interest in playing, then he didn't want to play, then he did want to play. There was a whole thing.
And for
And
clarification, this is a different Aiden from the one which currently runs Ice.
yes, this
Yeah.
is Aiden, who on Face It and in ICL is known as God himself. That's his in-game name.
Yeah, 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 I've heard that.
Yeah, so that's who he is. So we were pretty good. I know that a lot of people knew UCD for teamwork, especially because even we could play situations as a team where we would not be at an advantage. All of us against most teams, we would have an advantage against anyway.
Yeah.
Like just by pure skill
Skill,
level. I
yeah.
don't mean to come across as egotistical, but it is a team of pretty much all level 10s. Um, it is a decent team. And what ended up happening was when we would end up in situations where maybe we're in a 4v5, 3v5, and our teamwork alone could get us out of it.
Yeah.
Where we were communicating really well. We all knew our util. We all knew where each other was. And we never practiced, primarily due to time constraints. Because after the 6 month period as well, I think that annoyed some people. Because it was like, well, we practiced for this long. What was the point? But also, there was a genuine time constraint, especially with me, where I was working a lot. I know some of the other lads have their own stuff that they got going on as well. So it was like, whatever. I mean, like we'll make it through to the final again, as we always do, in our minds, and that'll be fine. We can try our best against TUD, and every season we have done slightly better against them. Last season, before the final, we had a number of internal issues that, as a result, we were surprised. Well, I was surprised we managed to take it overtime. We were like, I think 15-12, 15-13. Then it got brought up to overtime. And then we just threw it. Like, it was because we had a massive comeback. We were
Yeah.
like down, I think 14-9 or something. We brought it back. So we know the skill is there, and we know a lot of it is kind of an internal choking. But what happened this season, it seems to be a mixture because we've had internal discussions where we're like, yeah, we are possibly the most beatable we ever have been. Part of it is likely because of the lack of practice.
Yeah.
Part of it is also likely because of internal issues. I mean, there isn't a lot that I will talk about this because it is for the players involved to discuss. But even if you look at our latest game, where a lot of people in ICE noticed this, other players found out from other players, we ended up having to use a sub for our second game against NCI, and
Yeah.
that was not something any of us wanted, and it was not something that the people it could have been avoided, it should have been avoided, it wasn't avoided,
Yeah.
and as a result we had to use a sub for the second game, a player who at that point hadn't played about a month and a half, and he's a great guy, absolutely nothing against him. The fact he played with us, like, I thanked him and said thank you so much for playing. It doesn't matter that he played bad, it's not his fault. Like,
Yeah.
we're the ones who put him in that position, and he stepped up. Many people wouldn't step up in that position because they knew they would get bodied. But as a result, the first map, we knew that this was going to be happening in the second map. We weren't communicating, we weren't working together,
Yeah, it's
and
a
that was
bad
that was a
atmosphere.
yeah, and that was the case of like UCD's teamwork. Where was it? There was no teamwork. We weren't working together. We weren't playing together. There were no ideas. Barely anybody was talking.
Yeah.
So as a result, then you see this UCD teamwork that everybody hypes up. What happens when it goes away? What happens when it goes to shit? We lose to the first. We lose our first game to a team that's not TUD, or in 2.5 years, 2 years.
That's such a sad record to break.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what happens. It is what it is, but that's what happened. And the second map, then we played into overtime. There was, yeah, the fifth player finished with 11 kills in overtime,
Harry, yeah.
and it's like, yeah, and it's like, I didn't want to name him.
Nah,
It is
mate,
what it is, though.
you
Yeah,
can't hide here, look.
I suppose. Yeah, I mean, like I've already said, like anybody can go look at the thing to see who left. But the thing is that it's not his fault. But at the same time, I think there was some residual tilt from that first map,
Oh,
coupled with the fact that
definitely.
like it is just like they can notice that your fifth player is not playing that well. Let's just exploit him.
Yeah.
Which we feel is partially what happened. But yeah, it is what it is. Before that, I mean, like I wouldn't have put much stock in the results before our most recent against NCI, because it was like, yeah, we were dropping rounds to teams that we shouldn't be dropping rounds to. But I don't know if you've seen any of the clips from our games where,
No.
like, so for example, Danny was, we were all on Inferno. Danny was like in the apartment screaming about making tea and stuff in the apartments, and it's got put up on like the Ice TikTok and everything. It is bloody hilarious.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the point is that you can watch our streams. You can see we're just fucking around. You can see we're just laughing. We're doing dumb stuff. Like like it's not even like egoing. It's just like we're all just messing around in our comms and laughing.
Yeah.
And as a result, then we ended up dropping rounds, and it was like some people expressed concern within the team, being like, well, we've dropped like 7 rounds against MTUB, or 6 rounds, or whatever it was. And I was there going, yeah, because half the bloody game we were laughing and like buying shotguns. So it's like, yeah, of course we're going to drop rounds if we're doing that. But then it came as a bit of a shock with the NCI game, and there were catalysts to that. But it is a fair assumption to say that UCDA is a bit uh on the ropes nearly.
Yeah, running flat a little bit. I mean, at the end of the
Mm,
day, anyone can look at Group D. I was about to say Group C. That's a laugh for another time. I think
yeah.
anyone could look at Group D and see, you guys aren't going to struggle against anyone apart
Yeah.
from the one team that you did struggle against.
Yes.
You are going to be so far out ahead. I think you can drop a couple of rounds here or there, as long as it's not like you are trying your heart out and you are
Yeah.
dropping these rounds. Obviously, a couple of people might take concern at the fact that if you think that you are so far ahead of the other teams, how would you react against this last team? But
Yeah.
you said it yourself. There's internal issues. It is what it is. I think, yeah, you also said anyone can go take a look and see,
Yeah.
who swapped in and out. Do you think you are going to be in a decent position heading into the playoffs? Because your group's done. You
Yeah.
have 2 weeks now, isn't it, to sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
fix yourselves almost, but as you said, you don't really practice. So are we going to see a slightly revitalized UCDA, or is it just downhill from here?
So there's two ways I see this going. One way I see it going is that people on the team will realize, fuck, we're actually beatable,
Yeah.
and start like kind of going, okay, well, we need to focus. Or option two, which is, well, fuck, we've thrown it. I am of the first.
Yeah.
As far as I know, everybody on the team is of the first, that they're like, well, fuck, okay, we can actually lose games.
Today at least.
Yeah, yeah. But the worry would be that should we run into difficulties that we may not be able to clutch it out like we have done. Last season, I think it was last season, we were against DCU. Or no, sorry, it was the season before. We were in the semis against them, and they were up like 15-12 on the second map. We had won the first map, and they put us into a 5v1, and Ruben managed to clutch 1v5, and we actually ran it back, and we won the map. And it's like, genuinely, I wonder if we were all on the same mental state now, but with the same skill level as back then, would we have actually won that? Would we have been able to run it back? Even if we got the 1v5, would we have had the mental fortitude to run it back? And the season before that, against TUDB, we dropped a map against them, I think. And then in the third map, I remember, because we had Evan back then on the team. Evan's internet dropped because Evan was playing on 4G internet back then.
Yeah.
And we were down like 15-12, 15-11. And Aiden was like, Grand, I'll step in. And we were all kind of like a bit sullen because it was like semi-finals were actually starting to lose on the last map. And Aiden comes in and he's jovial because he hasn't been the one getting smacked out of it the last 6 rounds.
Yeah.
And he's there laughing and he's like playing around with us and messing. And it's like, hey, go on, lads, let's do this. Like, he's full of energy. And we ran it back again, like just kind of off teamwork and messing around. And kind of like you need that near friendly banter to keep you in the positive headspace for it. And I worry that as more situations build up around the team, it will be hard to maintain that positive mindset within the game. So it all depends, I think, on how the first couple of games go. If we end up against teams that we handily beat, I think we'll be fine. Yeah. If we struggle, that's when I'll start getting worried.
Yeah, and I mean, as you said, it goes hand in hand with not practicing. Yous could be like a well-structured team and not get along, but as long as people just listen to the call and know how to do their job, it's fine. But if you're relying on chemistry and team play, and then there's these issues, you might not want to be playing a site with the guy that you've just argued a bunch and yous are relying on each other. But it's just one of those situations. As you said, hopefully you can get your heads together. But with this being your last season and going into playoffs, you don't really have that space to second guess yourselves.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, have you won a season of Ice yet?
No.
Sadly, unfortunately.
we've had 4 or 5 grand finals. I remember the first season we had drags. That was our first season we got to the finals. And we were like tearing everybody up. Like, we were actually a really good team. And what happened was, toe for toe against Trinity, we should have absolutely smacked them out of it. Like, it just in terms of like comparing even face-it levels, etc. Their best player was Ekip, and then everybody else was like level 5 to level 7-ish. And I don't know what it was, but we just through. Like, we just lost. And then the next season, I remember, because of how it got scheduled, we ended up needing to use 2 or 3 subs. I remember we had to get Cooler from DCU to play instead of Drags, and like Cooler barely played the game at this point. And then we had another guy who hadn't played in about a year, and then it was me and Turtle. And I can't remember even who the third person was, but like it was just for lack of a better word, a clusterfuck. Yeah, like even the previous, I think even the previous final we had to use 1 sub, but it wasn't as bad. Like, we still shouldn't have lost. So it's just like we've never actually won a season, and then TUD came along, and it was like, well, all right,
all over. Yeah, exactly.
Right, perpetual second place.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose at this point, it's unfortunate that you lose that last game because now you're second seed, and you are eventually gonna will come across TUD before the finals. Then, just because I believe was it announced today or yesterday the way the season's gonna work. The first plays 4th and second plays 3rd, but it's Group A versus Group D, Group B versus Group C. So suddenly, like, seeding has just become a matter of life and death, pretty much, for you guys. And you didn't set yourself up the best.
No, that was what was discussed internally as well about. So the NCI game that we lost, it was discussed as like, this is the only game we need our full 5 for. Anybody else, it's grand, whatever. But NCI, we've always had close games against them. Because like, they're a good team. Comeback King is nuts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they do play well together. And we knew, like, yeah, we keep the head screwed on, we play well, we will win the game. But when you then have these other issues going on outside of it, and then you don't have your full five, it's
Ugh,
like
yeah, yeah.
you're not. It becomes a lot harder because you're not just playing against them now. You're nearly playing against yourselves because it's like you're trying to work to play with your teammates that, as you've said, you may have just had an argument with, or you may be having issues with, and it's just you can't get your head in the game. You can't comm correctly if you're reliant on comms and chemistry and everything. That's all out the window.
Yeah, no, exactly. But moving on from your many woes inside ice, you also do a lot of work behind the scenes. Chief in point, you are head admin for ICL, which I believe, outside of your tech journalism and stuff, is probably the highest. I don't want to say honor because let's be real, it's not a highest honor. Your highest point of responsibility, I would say, within the
Yeah,
scene, at least for a public facing
yeah,
bit. You probably do a lot between individual players and setting up tournaments or LANs and that sort of
yeah.
all that jazz. But ICL would be your public facing area. So how did you get started and how did you eventually find your way into the dictatorship?
So let me see. Way back, I remember my whole thing has always been like get your foot. This is, I think, for everything is like get your foot in the door
Yeah.
and then see where you can follow on from that. So when I'm talking about journalism later, I'll talk about how that eventually transpired into my job. But for this, it was like, well, the Irish scene has actually given me a lot. I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of it. I want to start helping because, like, for example, I remember going to One Tap Land. It's like, well, Alan Kelly's getting on a bit. Like, there is
Yeah,
going to come a
exactly.
point where he won't want to run tournaments. There's not really anything being run online at the moment. So, like, what's going to happen to the Irish scene when the few that are propping it up leave? So then when I saw that the Irish Collegiate Esports got announced, it was announced in the CS:GO Ireland Facebook group, and I messaged Aidan, being like, Aidan, to those who don't know, being the founder of Ice, I messaged him being like, yo, I've run like small tournaments because I did like small tournaments with some friends or whatever. I knew I have servers and everything that I've run stuff on. I was like, yo, I understand CS. I can run tournaments. I know how to do this and that. If you need an admin, I'm happy to help out.
Yeah.
Um, and he was like, yeah, actually, that would be great. So I stepped in. I became a CS:GO admin and the, I guess, liaison officer for the game as well, like kind of the first port of call for players. And I held that position until 2018, 2019, as the first port of call. Then I stepped down to become just a regular admin
Yeah.
when Gambra came in, and then September last year, or year before even. There, Jesus, I or was it? No, I could have. Sorry, it was last year actually. Yeah, sorry, September last year is when I eventually left Ice. Before that, I was just kind of like footing around a bit, helping out where I could with various different admin related things. And then around this time, then a month or two after, was when ICL came back.
Yeah, for
And
the fifth iteration for those
yeah,
who aren't
exactly.
keeping track.
Yeah. And I remember in the ICL season before that is when I had started to kind of do some work with the admins. I was a moderator and just kind of like helping out where I could. Uh, I remember my Irish Tech. There was talks of Irish Tech actually sponsoring ICL.
Yeah.
But then around this time, ICL kind of died off, and it was like, okay, whatever. And so when it's funny what happened with the latest iteration, Sinku, when he got banned from Ice, everybody was like in a call. We were all laughing about it and joking about it. We're like, hey, let's get a 10-man. And I think it was Sam who suggested, let's use the ICL hub for a 10-man.
Ah,
And
because
so
it's
all these
easier to set up. Yeah.
exactly, and a lot of the college players are already in it. And then it was like, okay, let's get everybody in the ICL hub. So then we started playing, and we are like, oh, ICL's back. And Ruben was an admin in it. Fletcher was an admin in it. Fletcher was barely doing anything with it. He had like long gone from the Irish scene. And Ruben was like, right, well, Adam, you're trustworthy. I'll make you an admin of this, like just help out,
Yeah.
moderate, whatever. And so we made the Discord. We kind of like were trying to figure out ways to handle everything. So I was an admin. We had then moderators, and it was kind of going well for a bit. And then I got promoted up to head admin. after we had made some changes, originally we were going to split everybody off into categories. So we had like social media team, PR team, and sponsorships team. And I was doing PR stuff, I was doing social media, and
Sponsorship.
well, I was kind of helping with social media, and then I was doing the sponsorships.
Yeah.
So at that point, then Ruben and Fletcher eventually just were like, "Hey, yeah, we'll just make you a head admin. You can handle all these things and kind of like take over and do whatever." And the reason why was kind of just because I guess I've been kind of in and out of everything in
Yeah,
Irish Counter
you know
Strike
how it
the last
runs.
few years. Yeah, like I've stepped into all sorts of stuff. Like I mean, with Ice, I was obviously doing all the CS:GO tournament stuff and handling players and everything. And there's a lot of back and forth, especially because you can sometimes there can be sometimes a lot of heated issues,
Hmm.
and it's like I had shown that I was able to handle those with a level head, and the same can happen in any competition for money, or even just competition in
And
general.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, and so it's the same thing in ICL, and it was just kind of I guess I worked my way up the ranks over the years because I began to know more and more people, and I guess kind of it became a thing of I have shown that I am able to do these things in smaller capacities, and then slowly moved up.
Yeah.
Um,
The
and it was
start.
all just kind of a thing of wanting to give back because there was a lot. I mean, like I'm not a great player. Like I've been around a lot. I have been on decent teams, but everybody knows I wasn't really the standout player on those teams, and so it was like, well, what's the other way I can contribute?
Contribute to the scene.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I feel like that's something definitely that the scene doesn't have a lot of is level-headed decision makers. But
yeah,
I'm sure that might be touched upon at some point. So smooth transition. From you're now the head admin of ICL to obviously there was a tournament over the
yeah,
last. I believe it concluded last weekend,
yeah.
but it
On the Saturday,
started
yeah,
the weekend before, which is an issue in of itself. Overall, apart from the fact that they were, it finished the next weekend, how do you think, at least from an adminning perspective, the tournament seemed to go? Because from my point of view, apart from some minor issues, which we'll talk about in a second, obviously you're protected, you could say as little as you want. How do you think sort of the tournament should be perceived by the public versus how it was?
uh, so there will be some beating around the bush here, and
Yeah,
some parts will try to be brutally honest. Um, for a start, Retzal is a fantastic admin. He puts a lot of work into this stuff. Um, and I thought the amount of abuse that he received was deplorable. There were players who were directly insulting him, there were players calling him a cunt, there were players who were spamming him, and I remember at one point I think he was nearly too afraid of muting people for fear of it coming across as muting criticism.
yeah.
So I had to step in and mute a couple of players in the Discord.
Couple of
Um,
very well known,
yeah,
established players who
yeah,
play for one of the Dublin colleges, I believe.
potentially.
Yeah,
And so it was like the community itself should not have been treating him the way he did, because I had conversations with him where it turned into a thing of him saying, I don't know if I want to run tournaments anymore. And I've been there. I've had that feeling with Ice. I've had that feeling anytime I've ran anything in this scene where it's a thing of why would I bother if they're going to act like this? And what happened there was as a result of a miscommunication as to why it got delayed. And I understand that players are annoyed. I understand money is on the line. I understand people have made plans to allow themselves to play this tournament. But at the same time, these teething issues are going to be what happens in essentially a non-profit for fun run tournament
yeah,
by people who are actually just passionate towards the game and want to grow the scene. So for example, what ended up happening there was when I spoke with Retzal, he had asked me what time are the games going until. And I had said, like, oh, are we going up to round three? And he was like, yeah, round three's fine. And he stuck out that message being like, yeah, round three. We're playing until round three. And likewise, sure enough, okay, he was running the tournament. Maybe he should have looked at the timings better. But at the same time, it was an honest mistake. It was
yeah,
a small mistake that ultimately ended up not really being a big deal because the game went ahead the following weekend. And people getting angry at him don't realize the amount of work that actually goes into it. And the public perception, even if you get players who, if you get people who are just kind of like dogpiling on the admins, dogpiling on the tournament, more and more people join in on it because they think it's, I don't know, fucking
A
hilarious or
meme,
something.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. But then the people who are actually running it, even if they know it's a meme, they're still getting hurt by it because they know they're getting laughed at. They know these people are just being like this towards them for fun.
Yeah.
So they don't bother with it anymore. They don't want to do anything anymore. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. There were miscommunications on the admin side. Things shouldn't have happened the way that they did, but they did happen that way. And it's a learning experience. Like, people need to grow up, I guess, is the way to put it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the reason, obviously, people might ask, because there was a very public bit where Retzel obviously put out, we'll go up to round 3. And you don't have to speak to this, but I will. And one of the owners just came in, Ruben in particular, just came in. And by the way, a player in the tournament himself. So realistically, any decisions should have been made beforehand. I have my own issues with owners and admins playing in tournaments and potentially winning
You
prize
would not
money.
have liked the team called Admin Abuse.
I know that was one thing that really annoyed me, but I do also realize the scene is small enough that we need to make up numbers, so things like this have to happen. But I personally think if an admin team were to win, none of the prize money should be given to them, potentially, just out of fear of conflict of interest. Side issue. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was put in Retzel's hands. He makes a decision based between you and him, and the reason it was between you and him is, as you said, you were in a team, so you were in a Discord group together talking
Yeah.
already. It just made the most sense, the path of least resistance. But one of the owners contradicts him publicly, which I believe completely undermines his position, and it wasn't done quick enough for people not to make plans. People had already made plans to go up until that point, and I think it just makes the whole thing look like whoever is organizing it, which was Retzel by himself, was done very, very poorly, and that wasn't exactly the case. I'm not busy because I'm not in university, but everyone who is in a college or university is obviously very busy at this point. And I think if you entrust someone, which Retzel was entrusted, to organize it, you need to either run covering fire for him when he is getting lambasted by the community, someone in a position of power, like one of the owners maybe. You obviously said that you did mute some people, but I didn't really see anyone come in and go, admin abuse will not be tolerated. If you continue this way, we will have to start timing out people.
That was the mute message.
Oh,
But
right.
yes.
But that was done when people were muted. That wasn't done when shit started to pop off. It was sort of done after the fact. Now, I don't know if people are too busy to really care, but if you're entrusting someone to organize the tournament, A, don't contradict them publicly. Let them run the tournament that you've asked them to do. And B, if you care that much, take 20 minutes before the tournament starts and just, like, owners to organizer, which is something I believe should have been done anyway, and just be like, right, do we have a start time? Yes. Do we have a finish time for all the days? Yes. Has everyone paid? Yes or no? Do we know what the prize pool is then as a knock on from it? Just make sure everything's in order, because if you do it publicly, it doesn't set a very good image. Obviously you can't really, I wouldn't expect you to speak much to it because
I do
you're a
have
head admin.
some thoughts on it.
Well, yeah, okay, then what would be your thoughts without getting yourself in too much trouble?
I mean, like, I'm the head admin. Not much that can happen. No, so ultimately, and I think the people involved in this realistically would know this to be the case, that should not have happened publicly.
Yeah.
That should not have happened publicly to undermine another member of staff who is effectively, because of how the moderators are split, this is effectively the owner of a subsection of ICL.
Yeah.
And to undermine another owner of a part of your organization publicly is not on. That should not have happened. I don't think anybody would really have an issue with me saying that, because that's just kind of common sense.
Yeah, should be. Should be.
Yeah. And I want that to be known as the position of ICL, that these things shouldn't happen. Because again, it's public perception as well. It's like, well, if it looks like it's being run by bloody Egypts, people aren't going to want to be involved, because they're like, well, what the hell's going to happen here? Like, what's the next dumb thing?
Exactly.
Now, secondly, there was the period where everything was discussed ahead of time, except for the ending time, and I don't. I'd say that was just overlooked. I think people were just like, "Grand, we're getting in, ready to play," and like,
Yeah.
fair enough. There should be a checklist. There should be like a checklist of like, have we done this? Have we done that? But it was missed, and it shouldn't have happened. But it's a learning experience, and likely won't happen again.
Yeah.
Um, as regards what you said as well about the admin abuse team playing, I do agree. The reason why we entered was actually for four numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we had said beforehand that we weren't entering a good team because we didn't want to be in a position to earn prize money. And I remember saying when we got knocked out, well, because like we were actually doing semi okay, I was like, thank fuck we didn't go further.
Yeah, I was really surprised whenever I saw that team comprised of like Sam and Long and a couple of those guys. I
Yeah,
was like, oh, that could be interesting. And then they bomb out and you guys are still in. And I'm like, oh, please, God,
yeah.
no. Um, but as you said, yeah, thankfully he's got knocked out beforehand. But maybe I don't know if that is something that needs to be publicly stated, like to have a subsection, if admins or owners do win, won't be getting anything. Because that's something that the community is very concerned about to a fault, in my opinion. They're very concerned
Hmm.
about, right, we've signed up to this. Where is all our money going? And why isn't it all going to the prize pool? And I think people might
Yeah.
need to cop on a little bit because, as you said, a lot of this is done non-profit. And the people who organize it sometimes make a decent bit of a loss. Because I think I might have saw something similar with one of the one tap lands where people were
Yeah.
asking, this is super expensive for us to sign up to. Why isn't it all going to the prize pool? And the answer to that is like, if you want something done right, it costs money.
Hmm.
And if someone like Retzel's doing it for free and people are
Yeah.
giving him shit, no one else is going to come and do it for free.
Yeah.
So when he goes, like, where are y'all going to play? Y'all going to submit to ice and
Yeah.
go along with everything they say? All right, no, people don't do that. So,
It actually is technically run at a loss because the servers, like all the money went into the either the tournament or the next season of
season,
ICL's
yeah,
prize pool. You can see it adds up. It's all of the money, but the servers cost money. The
exactly.
website costs money. The website is an optional extra, admittedly, so like that's kind of a more
That's
discretionary
more so
expense.
for me and you to put stuff on
Yeah,
at the moment.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but it's there. And then the servers themselves are cheap enough. They're like I think they're I'd say the last tournament probably cost like 10 quid to run the whole thing, but that's still a tenner coming out of somebody's pocket that's doing it for free because they want to for the love of the scene, and
yeah.
then he's being called a cunt for it. Like that's what happens. That is what has happened. That is a breakdown of what has happened, and it's actually ridiculous because you look at it and go, this lad's paying money for you to call me this. Like, why? What are they getting out of it? And likewise, why would the person who is paying that money go, right? Oh, I want to pay money again to do this.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
great fun.
Let's get abuse again. And a lot of people seem to forget that it's not just a tournament organizer; it's also a hub in the way that like some people got muted, and then the
Yeah,
next day are like, "Yo, can I be unmuted, or can I get an invite link back into it? This, that, or the other?" Because they've realized, oh, right, okay, it's not a one-off tournament. And
yeah,
it's like, if you want to go play in another hub, enjoy all your communication being recorded for God knows how long, and
yeah,
enjoy being given abuse by random English people and stuff like that. Like, people
yeah,
don't realize that it's a tournament organizer second, at least to a public perception, it looks that way, and it's a
yeah,
community hub first. And eventually, okay, maybe the way politics works behind the scene, certain people aren't going to be kicked out indefinitely. But let's
yeah,
hope eventually certain people get kicked out indefinitely if you keep doing stuff like this.
yeah,
I'm saying that as someone with absolutely no power, and God knows I'll be shut out of the scene before some of these people will be. But
yeah.
I can dream.
I mean, like that's the way it goes. I know there there are one or two players who aren't welcome in the ICL hub who
Yeah.
do not play in it. But aside from them, yeah, there's a couple, but aside from them, it was a very high bar to cross to not be allowed in, and it there needs to be there needs to be some form of system to be able to say, right, well, we've had enough of you. But the problem is that some of these players can potentially carry enough weight behind them that if they go, well, I don't want to be a part of this, I'm going to run my own thing, which is what has happened in the past, that people will just move over. And so there needs to be that balancing act where you need to kind of know, right, well, how can we deal with these players? And it will come to a point where no matter what, I'll just say, I don't want you in my hub. I don't want
Yeah.
you here. If it continues, but there is that initial leeway granted because it's like, right, well, we need to play the balancing act. But if it continues, if that happened again, that player, if our events admin started getting insulted and spammed again with things like that, there would just be words said where it's like, listen, you're out.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is it gets very. I've heard from people. I'm not saying this is fact, but I have heard from people that sometimes the rules are selectively applied based on who's friends with what admin or who's friends with whoever's in the hub. And I think when people see you could set all the rules you want. You, Adam, as head admin, could have a rule book that covers every situation. But if someone says something that barely crosses the line and they get banned, and then someone says something way worse, but because they're friends with this person, they don't get banned, people are going to get pissed off and they will set up their own hubs. It's about, in
Yeah,
my opinion, public perception. If you can go, no, this person very clearly said this thing that crosses our lines, they're not longer welcome here, but everyone else still is. People might be a little bit more inclined to stay, but if people start speaking of, I say very loosely, corruption and picking
yeah,
sides and all that sort of stuff, people will just get fed up and leave because it's happened God knows how many times to this scene. But
yeah.
I think we'll maybe avoid belaboring the point too much,
I I
unless you
can
have something you
say
want
on
to say.
that I can say on that that there have been issues that I have been bringing up in relation to that for months. I have been pointing out our inconsistencies when we rule inconsistently.
Yeah,
Um and I've been trying for us to put a stop to that. Uh Sometimes things in relation to them can be a bit wishy-washy, I guess. It can be hard to get a consensus, but overall, I do completely agree that that does exist. There is an inconsistency in how the rules are applied sometimes that I'm not a fan of, that I've brought up before, that other people have brought up before, and it's, I guess, just slowly working to stamp those out.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's quite interesting the idea that someone in the scene has contradicted the people above them and not been tossed out. I'm not saying your day is not coming at him, but it happens so
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
often in the scene. I'd be surprised. But yeah, we can sort of move on to this and go, well, not too far, but is there any do you have a future plan for ICL? Because now you're the head admin. The two owners have went on to make a lantern Teo. As far as I know, they still obviously have a little bit of a hand in ICL. But is there any sort of ideas that you think that you have that maybe haven't taken root yet to maybe try to progress the hub? Because it's the same core players that have been there for ages. I think everyone I've talked to so far in this series have said they found, Irish Counter-Strike and tournaments through a page like CSGO Ireland. Yet I never, maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but I've never seen anything really advertised there to get people
Yeah.
involved in the hub. I even saw someone in the ICE Discord saying, oh, what's this ICL, and
Yeah.
having to get linked to it. Do you think maybe there's not enough of a presence out there to grow the hub, or is there any other future plans that you or anyone else has to help that?
So, firstly, it's interesting timing because we're working towards getting a sponsor.
Yeah,
We are actually in some talks at the moment, and we have meetings and such in the coming days or weeks that the details will be ironed out. And if they come to fruition, that is fantastic.
great for
If
the
they
hub.
don't, we just keep looking. Um, I have ideas for advertisement. I have ideas for marketing. But I don't want to put any of them in place yet until we have a solidified system. There's no point wasting money on marketing or trying to discuss things with companies and try promise stuff when at the moment the potential activity of the hub could be considered fleeting.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it has been 6 months of relatively consistent activity, but it's hard to say where things will go, that we can go to a sponsor and say, listen, we have this amount of players, you give us this in return, when in a week's time it could kind of go slow again. When the college semester started, things slowed down a lot. And that's because, as I said to you, it was basically born out of college players wanting to play.
Yeah, yeah.
But because everybody has college on, nobody's playing. I'm barely playing. I was playing ICL a good bit around Christmas, but I'm back. I'm back in my final semester, final year, so I'm working a lot. I barely have time to play CS. And if I am honest, if I am going to play a game of CS, I'm probably going to play a game like just for Elo or something on a face of
With
queue.
friends as well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like if it's a like if I had time, yeah, I'd be playing ICL, and I know some of the lads that they do play ICL, and we do still get games every. I think we had 9 games on Monday, which is pretty good.
Yeah, 9 or
But
11, I think I saw someone say at one point. But
yeah,
anyway, yeah.
yeah. So like it's not that it's dying; it's that it's going to have its ups and
Ebbs and
downs, and
flows.
with the college semester, it is going to be even harder to get those games. I would imagine come summer we will end up with a lot more players, hopefully. And if that is the case, if things that we are working on now come to fruition, it will allow us to snowball that into bigger things come summer, and that's when we can kind of look to focus on expanding more. So like with the social media team, for example, we're kind of thinking, well, what gets engaging content? So it's like, oh well, putting up clips of the day and stuff like that, or anything that people might share in. Because like, for example, you get a clip of the day, you put one up at Drags, what happens is Drags goes and retweets it. It's like, look what I did, I got
It
clip of the
blows
day.
up,
And
yeah.
then a bunch of other people go, oh, hold on, wait, that was an ICL, what's ICL? And they go look at the page and they follow it, and then they go, that's another person who might join ICL. And you grow slowly like that, where you just want it's all about people seeing you, because a certain percentage will always follow through and join you.
Yeah, yeah.
um and so we're kind of trying to do organic growth for now until we're in a position where we can say, right, let's start putting money into this, let's start working for proper committed sponsors.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because everything grows astronomically and then dies just as quick as it grows, especially in a scene
Yeah,
as big as our own. I actually quite like the daily clips, but as you said, when the activity sort of dipped,
yeah,
there's no clips to put out. I had my own thoughts about that at one point, that you could do like top 3 clips of the month or something like that, and
yeah,
obviously my idea was I was going to host it, but we'll see how long that lasts. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so we've talked ICL to death almost. I want to say maybe a little bit longer than I thought, but this next bit, it's just filler. It's just a chance to get in trouble, really. It's just to have a discussion about the ICE Paddy, and that's the Irish Collegiate Esports, for anyone who doesn't know. The Paddy's Day, the scenes in that Discord.
Yeah.
Um, I'll ask for your general opinion. You can go as hard as you want, or as not hard. Obviously for anyone who I wasn't following, because everyone might not be drama whores like I am. Um, a couple people asked if we could change the schedule. Now, Ice runs every Wednesday around about 7 o'clock. It's a best of two, so about till 9 or 10 is the latest you should be going. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously St. Patrick's Day. I imagine all my viewers are audience, or all of my viewers are my audience. Yes, Ryan, that makes sense. Most of my audience is Irish. Couple people from the UK, so they might not know. But essentially, St. Patrick's Day is a bank holiday, so most places of work are closed. But not the pubs. Definitely not the pubs. Couple of players were upset that they would have to play during St. Patrick's Day and decided to absolutely mold the face off themselves in the ICE Discord and went about it the complete wrong way. But do you have any opinion on this before I start reaming off?
So I understand where they're coming from. Let's like if you look at Rainbow Six Siege, for example, I think part of why that scene died was number one, they're all very toxic. But number two, yeah, the toxicity was a massive issue. But the number two was actually the fact that they were on a Friday. If you're asking students to commit every single Friday of their semester to playing a video game in their room, especially any who commute, you're
Yeah,
gonna get a no. Like, I know, even just from the UCD team, they had about 3 or 4 really good players that they could have played with, but they couldn't because it was on a Friday.
I am.
And yeah,
Yeah, no, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah,
yeah, no, and it's like so. I understand from that perspective that on St. Paddy's Day in particular, there will be the issue where you will have some people who have other plans because it is a public holiday. Like you don't, it's a public holiday enough that you don't work on it. And I know that ICE have kind of moved things in the past for public holidays if needs be. So on one hand, I understand the annoyance, but I don't really think this is the year for it. Like, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be leaving. You're not supposed to be going to house parties. You're not supposed to be going out and doing stuff. And I understand maybe, yeah, okay, maybe you have like a Zoom pub quiz or something with your friends. But like, those are probably the edge cases. Like, I think if you were told no, you go, grand, okay, fair enough. Have to play Paddy's Day. Let's see if we can do it earlier. A team played at 3 o'clock today because they had plans for the evening. That both of the teams did. And
yeah,
like, that's what you should do. Like, it is a public holiday, so you don't have work, so you can play earlier. Like,
exactly.
there are ways around it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's proper communication. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand with a lot of people, don't even work out what game is going to be streamed until very shortly before it, or maybe the day before. I don't have
Yeah.
insider knowledge, but that's how it looks like from my perspective. So, they probably could have told people a little bit sooner. Yeah, we didn't manage to find a workaround for Paddy's. Everybody's playing. And to be fair to them, they do run League of Legends, Rocket League, Counter Strike, Valorant, and then they used to run R6.
Yeah.
So the week is full for the admins and everyone else to be doing other stuff. They don't want to have to mix and match. I understand that completely. It should have been communicated earlier, but people are just in the mindset that like, even though ICE is quite a big company for Irish standards in terms of esports, they just hop into that Discord and act like they're chatting to their mates and start like popping off. This is fucking shite. Blah 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 blah. Calling other players racist and stuff for questioning it. And it's just like, do you not have someone somewhere else you can voice your opinion? You know what I mean? Like, just ask and be told no and leave it. People have a problem with authority in this scene, and it's mind-blowing to me, but maybe that's because I didn't go to university. So I think, even for a 22-year-old, I've been working since I was 16. I've been in a full-time job pretty much getting out of secondary school. Maybe I just know how the world works a little bit more than some of these players, because no offense to yourself, but I've always thought that university was a way to not grow up for an extra couple of years. At least that's how my friends have done it. Don't worry, none of them watch it, but they're all a bunch of lazy cunts. Um, like, maybe that's just why the scene is so infantile in how they conduct themselves publicly. But at least
Yeah.
that's my opinion of how it is. I've only been here for a couple of months, and people have asked me, "Oh, were you here during this scandal? Did you hear about this scandal? What about the way this player talked to this player?" And it's like, this is just another example, and it's the same with the ICL thing. People are just kids. These are old enough
Yeah.
to know better. Especially the fact that a lot of this could be relayed back to your universities, and I'm sure universities would have something to say if they found some of the tweets that I found of players and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or even like the partnered universities, especially. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that you could find on players, and if it made its way back to the universities would be like, hold on, they're under our name, they're playing under our name, representing our university in this league.
And they're
Like,
kicking off in Discord. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Nah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. People don't realize how much is at stake, and they want to see. I can't tell if people want more tournaments to play in, but just none of the professionalism, or they want to actually push the scene forward. I'm quite happy with the guests I've had on so far, that everyone has agreed with me in the idea that this scene, we want the scene to get better. And that doesn't just mean more tournaments, it means people being held to a slightly better standard, because the hope is eventually we can become known on at least across the British Isles, as opposed to just in this tight-knit community. But God help us if any of these players are our face, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Um,
like it is. There is a lot of growing up that needs to be done for the players to act as, what would be the word? Like, I mean, I guess representatives is just a pretty easy way to put it. Like, they are
Adults.
effectively representatives. Honestly, yeah. Like, act as adults, and then you will be sound representatives. Like, that's all you need, are just the adult players to actually be adults. Because you get so many people who act as if, like, this is the end all be all. If they don't get what they want, well, then all hell is frozen over, and the tournament is shit, and everybody who's running it should die, and all this stuff. Like, that's what it feels like it is in the eyes of some of these players.
Yeah, I suppose the problem probably here with Ice is that, you've came in between a player and his cans. So, uh,
Oh no.
yeah, exactly. And it's like people could schedule it better. I think one of the teams switched someone out because he wanted to go drinking. And it's like, I suppose you probably don't care, but some of your teammates, and this goes for every team in Ice, one player at least on your team cares. So every time you throw around, every time you start molding and get potentially, because I know last week one of the MTU players got banned for a map and they got 2-0'd by Ulster Unicorns, which, like, have a look at yourself in the mirror, you know?
Yeah.
Someone on your team cares and you're screwing them over, and that's going to come to bite you at some point.
Yeah.
Now that everyone's mad, now that everyone dislikes me, we can start to go on to your other passion, Adam, and what you'll probably be leaning a little bit more for your steady income.
Yeah.
And that's your journalism side of things. We can transition over. Hold on. I believe it's a swiping transition. Let me see. I swiped the wrong way with my hand. But yes, I am, of course, talking about you. You and Evan both have set up, obviously you've set up irishtech.ie, which is a website where you primarily post reviews and such. We have been going for an hour and 7 minutes, and I know
Yep.
the scene has quite a small retention, attention span. It was the word I was looking for. So, very briefly, just sort of what was the idea behind setting this up, at least? Because you do have bigger places that you report with, but what was sort of the idea for setting this one up, at least?
So I mean, as a result of the bigger places that we'll get onto, it kind of became a thing of like, oh, I actually really enjoy writing about tech, and I felt that a lot of places in Ireland, I had major issues with how some of them report on technology. Be it like, I would be like, because obviously smartphones would be my expertise, I would be reading something like some smartphone review from some other Irish focused publication, and it's like, they're getting all this wrong. I have this phone in my hand. This is not. They might just even be getting the specifications wrong. I remember reading a review of a pair of earphones that I had gotten from another competing website, and they had about 2 paragraphs, and the picture that they had on it was a stock photo. And it was like, I was reading it going, there's no way this person actually used it. It was like, oh, everybody in the office liked how they looked. It was like literally 2 paragraphs. And it was like, it didn't even talk about the sound quality on a pair of earphones. And I was looking at it going, what the fuck is this actual, like, what is happening? So this is when I was like, okay, I want to do this stuff better. I just want to do my own way. I know how to do this cheaply and how to do it that I won't be running a loss on it if I'm running it. And so that's why I set up Irish Tech, just like set it up with Evan. We have articles on it. We've managed to get review devices off of companies. We've made lots of partnerships. We've gone to lots of events under the Irish Tech name, which, like, good enough for me. It's something I set up with Evan and was like, hey, we achieved what we wanted to do. It's cool. So now it's kind of like, as you can see, I mean, it's a lot slower, but that's more because it's hit the back burner while we've both had a lot of work. And it's like, there's no longer that drive to do anything with it in the immediate future, because I know I've already achieved stuff with it, that those will be retained, that when I come back to it in a couple of months' time, I can continue working on it. So that's kind
Yeah.
of the whole story of it.
No, To be honest, it's pretty impressive. I think part of the problem could be, and I'm completely speaking out of school here, so tell me if I'm wrong, but with other websites that you reference there, it just maybe it feels like they're trying to avoid ever saying anything bad in the idea
Mm.
that they then won't get the next model from the
Yeah,
company, but
I
completely
mean
out of school.
it's possible, but what's interesting is I have had I have had phones where I've absolutely slated them. As in, like, I know that there was one phone I reviewed about 2 years ago, and I noticed when the embargo lifted. So the embargo is when uh it's like, oh, you get a phone. It's like, right, well, you can publish your review at this time, which is after we announce it, whatever. So when that lifted, there were significantly less reviews than there normally would be. But mine went up and it was absolutely slating the phone. And I was thinking, God, this is really strange. And my editor was just like, yeah, it's like there's like no reviews of this phone. And then he started sending me tweets from people saying like, oh, we didn't put up our review because we had this issue or we had that issue, and we didn't know if this was an issue with the phone, as in like a production problem, or if this is just genuinely the phone that is bad. And
Yeah.
then I went to an event about a month after in the UK, and I met up with some other journalists, and some of them were telling me that they had read my review and said, yeah, they'd come across the same things, but they didn't know if it was an issue with the phone or not, and they didn't want to come across as like, because to be fair to them, if it was just an issue with their particular phone and all the rest were fine, it would look really bad that they published this
Yeah.
review absolutely slating it. But the thing was, I had the connections to like their engineers and stuff, so I was sending them stuff. We offered to be like, yo, we won't publish this if we know for a fact this is a problem with just this phone. But they wouldn't get back to us. They did not tell us that. So we were like, right, fuck it, we'll publish. But a lot of places didn't want to do that, didn't want to damage the relationship, and that I get that, but it's clear, as you said, yeah, from other, especially Irish websites, it feels like they are genuinely afraid of saying something negative, to the point that you get a 2 paragraph review about a product that's for earphones that does not mention their audio quality.
Yeah, and maybe there's strength in numbers though, especially with that particular case. If enough people are
Mm,
saying, yes, we had a problem with our thing, so we didn't put a review out, maybe someone like, clicks on and goes, oh, this is happening more than once. And I
yeah.
don't know, maybe you could say something, watch out, because if you get this phone, you might get these issues.
Yeah.
But anyway, on
The
to
the
your.
company the company continued working with us, like, so it
Oh,
was
so
fine.
yeah,
But
so
yeah,
they didn't care in the end.
nah, yeah. Like they knew it was, like, they eventually put out software updates that fixed it, and all's good now. But yeah, no, it was kind of a thing, if that is the kind of struggle that you can get.
Yeah, but at least in that instance, I don't know, I'm focusing a lot on specifics, weirdly enough. But it was, I suppose, it does give the company a good comeback story.
Yeah, exactly.
But moving on to said bigger thing, and it's quite a big thing. I didn't actually hear about these guys until I was put on to you to get a quote for my original ICL story, and when I clicked on you, I like started seeing reviews and stuff, and I was like, oh shit, this is kind of a bit more big time, and that is obviously XDA developers, which from my understanding is quite a big, it's not just Irish based, it's quite a big tech review website that seemed to get pretty much everything to them.
Yeah.
This is just a quick run through of all your articles. You can see actually you upload on this super regularly, because I imagine this might be your primary source of income. You don't have to agree or
Yeah.
deny. Oh well, there you go, you agreed.
Yeah, no, this
um
this is this is my job, yeah.
yeah, so you've got March 16th, March 13th, March 2nd, 3rd, um Journey to the Savage Planet. I was thinking about getting that at one point, but anyway, um
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I've taken I've been working less recently because of college work, but there was a time period where I was putting out 6 articles a day, maybe. Like, I
Jeez,
was
yeah,
working
because
a
page
lot.
92, like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm just gonna scroll for this. Just how did you get started in here? Because I know it's quite an interesting story.
Yeah, so back when I actually started writing, not for tech companies, but for Dignitas, Team Dignitas. I did some of their for exposure mousepads
Hmm.
writing things, and quickly noped out of that when I realized it was all just a bloody scam. And I was like, right, well, I enjoyed writing in esports, but also I messed around a lot with smartphones and stuff. So I was like, okay, I know a lot of things that, as far as I can tell, if I Google them, I can't find information on these, but I know how to do these. So one of the tutorials I wrote was, those Android smartwatches that you could get? When you
Yes.
wanted to pair one of those to a new phone, you had to wipe the whole thing and reinstall all the apps. I discovered a way to avoid doing that. So I wrote a small tutorial about it and I stuck it up on Reddit. Then there were a couple of other things that I noticed as well, like small little things I knew that other people didn't. I wrote them up, stuck them on Reddit. And what ended up happening was I found this Reddit post. I woke up at like I think 2 a.m. or something for this company called Pixel Spot. Now, company, it was like some random guy who was just doing it for fun. And I contacted him. I was like, "Yo, can I like stick up these things that I wrote just on your site to give it slightly more legitimacy?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So I get applied to write for them, and the post got removed off Reddit like 10 minutes later, and then I went back to sleep. Um, and then yeah, the guy messaged me next day. He's like, "Yeah, sure, go on. Yeah, you can do that." So I sent him all of them. We put them up on the whatever they're on the site, and again they get posted on Reddit. But now they're on the proper site. They kind of get some traction. And I remember then about 2 months after I published the one for the Android smartwatch, it was actually on the day of my 18th birthday. I woke up in the morning and I had a Reddit message from the guy who is now my editor, and he asked me, "Did I write this article? How would I be interested in working for XDA?" And I was like, "Is this a joke? Like, is this because I knew XDA? Like, that's primarily where I would do all my phone modding stuff. So I was like, this is the XDA." So we organized like a mini interview thing, and it was like, yeah, he took me on as a freelancer kind of deal. But it's weird. I'm like a freelancer I'm technically a freelancer with them even now, but it's like with guaranteed work, etc.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
once I graduate, there are talks of going full time, etc. Whatever. Um, but that's well down the line for now. Anyway, yeah, it's just still on the freelance basis. But so I started working with them, and then uh I've just stuck with them since. I've gone to loads of different events. I've gone to loads of different countries. I've reviewed loads of phones. And I've met loads of cool people doing it. Like, I mean, I've met some bigger YouTubers and everything. I've met some YouTubers who there was one particular YouTuber who I used to base my writing style off of how he scripted his videos because I really liked it. And then I met him at an event and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I read your articles," and I was there in my head like eternally screaming, like,
Screaming,
"Oh my god,
yeah.
yeah!" So there's been a lot of cool experiences I've gotten out of it, and it was all basically because I woke up at 2 a.m. that one night and was just like, "What's on Reddit?" And then I put forward my name for this small site, and it just snowballed from there. So
So the message is basically, just look wherever you can. Eventually, you
yeah,
might find a break, sort of thing. Um,
yeah,
no, so you're living the dream. Is long story short, living the dream
I
with
do enjoy it. Yeah.
a little bit of Irish Counter Strike nightmare just to keep yourself on your toes.
Oh yeah, no, like it would be great if not for those meddling kids.
Yes, those meddling 23-year-old kids. Um,
Sadly, yeah.
Yes, this will be my last podcast in the scene. I'll be quickly moving on to the British scene in general, where I'm sure people will not be as toxic.
Oh, definitely not. No,
Yeah,
that would never
definitely
happen.
not. But I asked you beforehand, and this is one that I thought might not be a question you would actually be interested in answering. But as you're a nice guy, you said, "Sure, I'll take your shit question, whatever, to get views on this crap video." No, he didn't. Don't worry. He
It
actually
was a
was
lot
quite.
worse.
Yeah. Yes, thankfully I was not recording, or else Adam, you'd be cancelled.
Brilliant.
No, the question was just sort of like, there's people. Okay, I'm gonna say there's people coming up in the scene. Not really. I'm the only one who's unknown who's like trying to do stuff like this. But obviously, I've got a niche
Yeah.
that I'm trying to do stuff for. But for anyone else who might stumble across this video, because you do have a decent follower base on Twitter, so you might get someone else. What would you say to them if they were looking to get into this sort of line of work and they maybe don't have the opportunity to do journalism in like an educational background?
Uh, so really, from the way I see journalism, it's not that you need the necessary tools of a journalist that you would learn in college or whatever to actually be a journalist. I honestly think the most important part is just asking questions. It's just researching. It's just looking into things. If something seems off, actually read about it. You have up here a piece that I did for XDA about the US government charging Huawei with stealing T-Mobile's trade secrets. And the actual reason I got you to show that article was not the contents of it, but it was the lengths that I went to write that article. That article, those government papers for that article, I think went up at like 2 in the morning or something. And I spent probably about 2 hours, 3 hours reading through them and reading through about 60 pages of court documents, taking out all the key points, and then writing that article condensed with all of the key points about it. And I'm not a formally trained journalist. I'm a computer scientist. But
Fair. I got confused. Your Twitter bio said journalist or journalism, and I was like, oh right, so he must be doing that university. Okay, fair enough.
No, yeah, computer scientist 4th year. So yeah, no, this was why, like, I just kind of got here from asking questions, just from pushing, from looking into things. It started off with asking questions and looking into things of how I could fix certain things on my phones or smartwatches, but it transpired into asking people questions, looking into things, trying to figure out why things might be the way they are behind the scenes or otherwise. And you can just keep pushing, and once you get your foot in the door, you have the ability to go further. So when I got my foot in the door at XDA, it wasn't a thing of like, oh well, I've made it now, I have a job and I can make money. It was a thing of, well, I'm going to keep actually working to try and get better at this, because I knew where I was likely not where someone with my skill level really should have been. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna really keep pushing at this and get better as fast as I can. And so things like this are a prime example of that, where it's like, okay, I've been tasked with writing this article. And it was like, originally the prompt for it, the pitch for it from my editor or whoever gave it to me at the time, was basically just report that Huawei's been charged with this. That's it. So generally we'd just give the bare details of like what's happening. But I was like, you know what? The court documents are there for me to read. I may as well read it and see if I can get something interesting out of it. And so that's what I did. And it's putting in that extra effort and that extra work that maybe sometimes, like, there could have been fuck all in there. There could have been 60 pages of just pure nothingness, and it was just super boring. But it actually turned into a really interesting story that I'm pretty sure I was the first to actually break, because I was the only one willing to stay up at 2 or 3 in the morning writing this out and going it out. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, just keep pushing once you get your foot in the door. Even now, like, even now, I still push myself, despite having been in it nearly 4 years. I'm still always trying to do new things there when I get the opportunity. I'm still always trying to say, like, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Just to kind of further my skill set. Because even now, it will come to a point where if you get into a position like that where you feel like you don't actually belong there, and there is an element of imposter syndrome there, even if you work there for a year, and then you're told, right, well, you're not good enough, you're out, chances are somewhere else will pick you up. Chances are you now have that experience that if you apply to enough places, you're probably going to get in somewhere. It mightn't have been as good as the last one, but you can work your way up from there. And that's kind of just get your foot in the door and keep working. That's the main thing, really. And just always keep an eye out for opportunities. And don't work for exposure. Please, for the love of God, don't work for exposure.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting side point. I personally, because I had a decent bit of experience like acting coming through secondary school and stuff. That's quite a big problem in that area as well, is that too many people do it for the love of doing it as opposed to like getting bills paid. So they had to basically say, if you're an actor, you need union representation, because too many people are doing it for free. I actually think at the very, very, very start, doing it for exposure and for free is maybe okay, but once you start to get any semblance of a skill for it, start, know your worth, ask people. Because I'm sure if off camera I asked you how much, say, you were getting paid per article or something like that, because I had someone offering me something, I'm sure you'd tell me. It's like illegal to tell people that they can't speak about their rate, especially in a Western, like a Western country in Europe. Although I'm not in Europe, haha, sucks to be me. I'm sure that'll be illegal legal very, very soon. But yeah, like, because I like, even with casting, you can ask people how much you get paid, so know your worth essentially as well. Especially in the Irish scene, bro. If you want to do something, someone will let you do it. As weird as that sounds, the guy who was casting the UCD thing, he just responded to a tweet. he was just like, yeah, I'll get in on that. Why not? And I was talking to him. He's like, bro, I've been in the Irish scene for like 2 weeks, and I'm
Yeah.
casting this with you. So it's one of those things. Definitely. But look, we've been going for an hour 25 minutes. I've had 6 chicken nuggets today. I need to go
Oh
eat a pot
no.
noodle or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been lovely talking to you. I like to tell everyone that I appreciate them coming on because I'm a little bit of an unknown entity, and people like you and Sam and Evan and Ronan like really help sort of boost my numbers and the possibility, because even though I'm not known by any stretch of the imagination, some people know of me now, and I'm sure I'm gonna make some enemies in high places after this.
Speed run.
Yeah, you get kicked out of the scene any percent. Uh, you do help sort of boost my ability to get into places, which I do appreciate. Especially coming to talk to me, and nobody with poor social skills.
You're not too bad.
Oh, thank you, brilliant compliment.
High
But
praise.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'll just, the usual, like this video if you liked it. If you didn't like it, write a comment about how, I've got a shiny forehead or something because of the lighting I use.
Or me,
But
because I have no lighting.
yeah, how you're all red-faced.
Exactly.
Yeah. But any feedback would be appreciated. It helps the algorithm all the way anyway, even if you are, slating me. And especially a like counts as interaction, or a dislike, sorry, counts as an interaction. So go ahead. Subscribe. I have I think I want to say minimum 60 viewers per podcast, and I have 25 subs. So sort yourselves out. Yeah, no, but I've been Fleming. This has been the Fleming Chronicles with Incipiens. For all 2 viewers who actually watched to the end, thank you very much.